would like to address, please let us know. We'll make time for you. Otherwise, just sit and participate as you wish. So, thank you. The next thing, as required by charter, this body needs to elect a chairperson and a vice chairperson. Oops, hold on, I got a resident joining in.
I nominate Mary Rogers as chair.
I'll second it.
Are you sure there's no discussion or no one else wishes to try this? Then I shall, oh, where is Ray? Here he comes. We don't want to miss Ray. Let's redo that so that Ray gets a chance to weigh in. And we have Mr. Alex Miller or Ms. Alex Miller, who is a resident. Thank you for joining us. And please let us know if there is a specific agenda item you would like to address. If you are just here to observe, we thank you for doing so. Hearing nothing from Resident Miller, we will go
Hi,
back.
yeah, I'm just here to observe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Here, then no change to the agenda. Ray, we had just, a motion had just been made because we have to elect a chairperson and a vice chairperson. Tara, will you redo your motion for Ray's benefit?
I nominate Mary Rogers as chair.
Second it.
Okay, good.
If there is no discussion, we will call that question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you got that, Laurie? Good.
Unanimous.
Now we will.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've got one more year on this term. Now we will look for a vice chairperson. Need a motion for a vice chair.
How about Tara? Tara Lowry. I'll nominate her
I'll second.
if she's
that
willing to accept.
nomination.
I would second that.
All right.
As long as it doesn't have the same complications as last time, which was paperwork.
Oh, there will be, but you know what, Tara, I think it's I welcome the opportunity to work together. One thing I would love to do is create a schedule for the trustees of all the things that occur, whether it's annual, semi-annual, every 5 years, every 8 years, or whatever, so that we just know who has to do what and what the next chairperson is going to be responsible for. Things sneak up on you that you don't know. I just learned a few things this week myself. So at any rate, we have a motion and a second. I shall ask all in favor. Aye.
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 We are again unanimous. Thank you, Tara. The next thing by charter is we shall appoint a chief and 2 assistant engineers of the fire department. Sadly, Chief Harrington cannot be with us this evening, but I suspect there is no one else because we have no. Yes, I don't even know if the board has done this on an annual basis in the past. So.
I see Matthew's shaking his head no.
Yeah.
So yes, I
So-
would say it's no.
In absence of any other process, we have Steve Harrington, and I don't have it in front of me, but I can find it in just a moment. We have the, oops, grab it for you right now.
Matt, is it typical that because the fire department holds an election, does the board typically just accept the nomination from the department? Is that how it goes?
That has been the case in the 20 years that I've been here, but I think it's very appropriate for Mary to follow the charter And if that's what it says, then I guess it is within our discretion to consider this, but barring no other possibilities, I think we nominate Chief Harrington to the,
Yes, we should nominate Chief, Ed Harrington as fire chief. Andy Myers has been the assistant fire chief. That seems appropriate. And then we have Andrew Sensini is the first assistant and Mike Pierce is the second assistant. I don't know how that follows. I don't know
Excuse
what.
me,
charter-
Mary, excuse
Pardon?
me. That changed last week.
Oh,
I have the correct information if you'd like.
yes, because we need that for our emergency management plan. So yes, thank you. What is the new recommendation?
So elected at the annual meeting of the North Bennington Fire Department was Ed Harrington as chief. And then first assistant is Keith Cross Jr.,
Okay,
Mike Pierce,
okay.
And
Mike
Joe-
is the second assistant?
is Mike Pierce, correct?
Okay.
And Joe Brown is the third assistant. So there's always three under the chief.
Okay,
And those are the three. I'm talking to Mike right now,
okay,
and he gave me that information. I did hear that information last week when I asked, but
Mike Brown is the third assistant.
no, Joe Brown.
Joe Brown, I am so sorry.
Mike Pierce is second and Keith Cross Jr. is first.
Okay, so since charter says we must appoint the chief and two assistants. Lori, should we do assistant 1 and 2?
Sure, if that's what the charter
Okay.
says.
Well,
They
it
have
just says
three.
2, it doesn't say,
Right, and theirs says three, so it might
Okay.
be a good idea to look at what theirs says, and I think we should go by the charter that you're looking at.
okay,
But at some point, perhaps we should look at theirs.
okay. So we should then nominate or appoint Ed Harrington as chief,
Correct.
Keith
Mhm.
Cross Jr. as one assistant, first assistant, and Mike Pierce as second assistant.
So moved.
Correct. That's
I'll
correct.
second that.
Okay.
And
And
if-
then all in
if-
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Okay,
If their department wants to have a third, that's fine.
yes,
I guess it's just not acknowledged
okay.
by our own charter.
Okay, I will then get with Chief Harrington because today we have to, well, we'll get to that in other business. I'll wait. We can go in order. Oh. The next order of our business is reviewing and approving the minutes of March 7th. Everyone should have minutes in front of you or should have reviewed minutes already. And thank you, Tara, for having taken those minutes.
I'll move that we approve the minutes of March 7th.
I will second that. Any comment or thoughts?
Nope.
Eating right along, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain because I wasn't there.
All right, Lori, do you
Wasn't
have
present.
that? Good. Our next order of business then is to review and approve the warrants and the payment of bills. Doug, can you guide us through those and in any order you wish?
Yep, we'll start with the payroll warrant. Really nothing out of the ordinary other than March happened to be a three pay period, so there is a third pay period with the biweekly 26 times. So 2 months out of the year, there's 3 pay periods. March was one of the months this year. So there's 3 pay periods. 2 AFLACs, again, just how February with the short month, it actually hit the account
Okay,
at the beginning of the month. So that's why there's the 2 AFLACs there. And that's it. So the total for the payroll warrant for March is 18,408.14.
do we have a motion?
So
I'll
moved.
make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so we have Matthew and Ray. If there is no discussion, hearing none, all in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
got that done. All right, which do you want next, Doug?
Next, I'll do the late March warrant. As we've talked about going forward, it's going to be likely that almost every month we'll have a late warrant, trying to make sure that we get everything out in a timely manner. So there was a small late warrant for March. The 2 larger items on there is nothing out of the ordinary: Green Mountain Power and Cargill, which Norm uses for de-icer salt. Other than that, it was all smaller bills. So the late warrant amount is $5,923.43.
So moved.
Second.
Are the 2 AT&T bills just 2 separate bills that happen to be the same amount?
Yes. So the way that the 2 cell phones are set up, it pays separately.
Okay, good, thank you.
So that you'll start to see that every month going forward. And AT&T has a little bit of a process. I'm going to be able to get another $1 or so off of there once they confirm our tax exempt status. So that'll go down slightly, but you're going to see that the way that it bills, even though it's one Village of North Bennington, 2 lines, it pays separately.
That's fine. Thank you so much for following up with all of that, by the way.
And which 2 departments, is it one of them is zoning?
Treasurer and
Yes.
zoning.
Yep. So
Treasurer.
the two designated lines that are out there that have cell phones now that are property of the village is the treasurer position and the zoning administrator position. Those numbers are listed as Village of North Bennington. They're on the website, all communications, the depot answering machine for the time being that we still have that line as an active line directs people to call either one of those numbers depending on what their matter is. So those are the ones that are going to be out there and that village residents will be using.
All right, thank you.
And last, we have the regular April warrant.
Oh, I'm
we
sorry,
vote on that?
we didn't do this one yet, Doug. Can I?
Oh, sorry.
can I just go back?
Probably have that.
It was
We need a
moved and
motion.
seconded. No, I think it was.
Oh,
moved
it
and
was?
seconded.
It was
Oh, yes,
moved and
and then
seconded.
My mistake, then I asked a question. Okay, so that was the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, Doug, back. to you.
April warrant is in the amount of 56. Thank you. The April warrant is in the amount of 56,881.29. Everything on here is normal other than Contech, which is
Yeah.
for 46,326. And that is the Overly Road culvert.
And Norm
so
will
we-
be discussing that.
Normal,
Yes.
once he jumps on, he'll talk more about that, but that's what that one item is. So obviously that is covering, the vast majority of this warrant. And as everybody remembers, that will be paid back via a grant. But we obviously have to lay the money out front to get that. So again, the warrant is 56,881.29. And if anybody has any questions about other items, let me know. Otherwise, that's all I have for the warrants.
Should we ask Norm to speak to that bill, that particular bill, or not before we vote? Or
If you have a question, Norm will do so. Otherwise, he will. be
I don't
discussing
have a
that.
particular question. I guess I want to know generally what it's for.
Oh,
So
okay, Norm.
that
Norm,
can
would
come
you-
afterwards because I'm
Yeah,
going
would
to
you
approve
mind
it anyway.
addressing?
What?
It's the culvert. It's 10 feet high, 14 feet wide.
This is the culvert itself?
This is the culvert itself. It's
Okay.
pieces and it has to be bolted together.
Yep, all right,
Well, it's not the biggest piece of the project, but it's a major piece.
all right. And Okay, and it's a substantial item, so that's why it costs that much.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
I would make a motion to approve the warrant for April 56,881 and
I thought
29
we
cents.
already had a motion. Okay, never mind.
Second,
I'll second it.
Okay, I think Tara did. Thank you, Tara.
Okay.
And unless there are other questions, hearing none? All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
got it. Thank you.
Okay,
Now-
thank,
Just so you know, Lori, Scott and I will sign these payroll warrants. I will have them on your door in an envelope, so other folks can go and sign them as you can. We are going to have a number of other signatures required. And so, again, these will be all put together, and as we discuss each document, you'll know, and we'll have 2 signatures tonight, and the rest of them will be on Lori's door for subsequent signatures.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yes, thank you. All right, let me get back to my list. Norm, so that we don't keep you too long, and you update us on all of the other goings on and projects.
All right, so we'll start at the end of town, the Overley Road culvert. We have the culvert. It's been dropped off. We've done some more land clearing, getting ready to anticipation of building it. We've met with the power company. We've met with the electrician. We've met with the river engineer. So we're all set to go. There will be at least 2, if not 3 power poles redone on that street before, after, or during our operations. It depends on how they want to coordinate that. There'll be some temporary street lighting on that road for safety for everybody. We have filed for the permit for the state to put up our signage that we need. We have bought all the signage. We bought all the poles, so, we've got a lot of things ahead of time. Again, it's because of how we do things with BRCP and Jim, it's a 90-10 grant. So all the slips, Doug and myself should get together and we can put in for an invoice for a payment for what we have done now. I'm still waiting on the labor, stuff like that. We have a 10% match, which is in-kind work, but,
And
that-
Norm and I met with V-Trans last week, and Norm, I've got the forms from him now. So you
Okay.
and Doug and I can get together and figure out how, get those forms filled out correctly for what we've got to date.
Perfect. Yep. Our next thing is we have the MRGP, which is basically layman's terms, it's stormwater stuff. We have some updates that we have to do every year, a certain percentage of the village. If anybody wants to learn how that kind of works, you have to come to the garage. I can show you. It's too hard to explain. But Wellings Road is the next segment that we're going to do. And the culvert on Wellings Road is a 2-footer and it needs to go to a 4-footer. And this will be grant funded, so it shouldn't be a big deal. When we decide to do it, the road will have to be closed for a day. We'll make sure nobody's up there fishing and away we go. Our grader, the transmission has been brought back from the repair facility that rebuilds them for Caterpillar. And, I'm expecting a phone call to pick that up anytime. In the meantime, the town of Shasberry has helped us considerably on Park Street. They've graded it twice for us, and the town of Bennington came over and graded Wellings Road this week. The town of Bennington is also using the baseball field on Wellings Road parking lot, not the field, the parking lot, for a laydown area for the construction that is going on Pleasant Street and on
Mhm.
Prospect Street. So for those of you who are to get up to speed, we had accepted a bid to get excuse me, Prospect Street and Pleasant Street repaved. There was water line that needed to be updated. There was 8 of them. The contractor was awarded, I believe, was Craig Weaver for the water department. And when we got into looking at the sewer system, the town of Bennington decided it was the best time to redo the sewer line on Pleasant Street.
Oh, for God's
The
sake.
old, okay?
Hmm.
And there were some pitch problems they had in, he was a trustee, he passed away.
David
Yeah.
Monks?
No,
No,
on that street, the power guy.
right.
Oh,
Oh,
Bill Scully.
Bill Scully.
Scully.
oh,
Bill Scully, right.
There's been a problem, like his residence and a couple of the others because of the pitch, so they're replacing the sewer line, so they're the first one to work. So they'll get the sewer line in, then I believe Bennington, or excuse me, the North Bennington Water Department with their contractor will come in and they'll do the 8 services on there's 4 on Prospect and I believe there's 4 on Pleasant Street. Then the paver will get here and he will grind the roads because we can't lose our curb reveal. He'll grind them, he'll shim them, then the town of Bennington will come back and they will rebuild all the manholes on Prospect Street, which for some reason there's a crazy amount of manholes
Yeah.
on the street versus any other place in the town.
Mhm.
For whatever reason they did it, but who knows? That was built long before any of us were ever around. And then that will be redone and then the paver will come back. So we're hoping to have this project wrapped up by July. So you have any?
we have gotten notification out, as you know, to, Doug and I, Doug, that's another thing you and I can do this next week is we'll find the addresses through the grand list for each of those homes on those 2 streets. Anyone for whom I had an email on those streets, I've emailed. All the businesses have been notified around there. And it's in the depot, in the post office, in the library website. So hopefully people are aware of it.
Mary, I'm one of those residents on Prospect that needs a water line upgrade. And I spoke with maybe a month ago with the water department prior to there being a bid on it, but I'm not aware of any movement on that as to whether what we have to do and when we do it.
Yeah, well, let me follow up for you, Matthew, because the 8 folks who are affected, I know there was a letter written to those 8 folks. I'm hoping it was received, and if not, I will ask the water department to knock on those 8 doors and make sure folks are aware. But they do have a contractor, and they did in their letter, I have not seen it myself, but are suggesting if those, if the service ought to be upgraded from the curb stop to the home and get rid of anything that might be lead there, now is the time to do that. So I'm going to make a note and I'll follow up on that and just make sure you and everybody else is aware, has been given that notice.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that specific project that Norm was laying out?
When do you think that it will begin?
It's began this week.
Oh, good. I haven't been up there.
They're-
Okay,
Last week they came in, they started moving in equipment and, materials that they needed. Again, they're using that ball field. It's the better spot to be able to put their stuff and keep it secure. And they've started digging. There's at least one new manhole on Pleasant Street, the first one that they had to start with. The street is open at the end of every workday. And they're doing the best to accommodate residents. It's going to be a little tough in that corner of the village till the paving's all finished. We do have some cars in the parking lot that on Thursday morning are not gonna be there anymore because they've been parked for 6 months and haven't moved. We had 4, we're down to 2. And we're getting those things squared away. The paving's gonna go, if you walk over in front of Pangea's and in front of Powers Market, you can see the difference in the pavement from old to new. And that's where the pavement is going. So there's going to be quite a bit of confusion and chaos there for a day or two, a couple days. And going up and down Prospect Street, for the best part, once we get past Mechanic, we'll close it completely, except for residents to get to their homes, but because it's safer for the con. All the water work is above Mechanic to the top of the hill on that street. So, but I've heard from a couple of the residents and on Pleasant, and they're very happy, excited to see this stuff happening in the town and village, and it's getting done. So that's good. We have a very ambitious summer, just completing those projects, Overley Road. We've also met going over by North Bennington Variety Store with, we've had a preliminary discussion with the state about the sidewalk there, and there's a culvert pipe underneath there that needs to be changed. That's the state's responsibility. And their infinite wisdom, they moved the mileage marker of the road. And in doing that, they accepted all responsibility for that pipe that I don't think they knew they had. We got to dig up the sidewalk. So, they have a choice. Either they can fix the pipe before we put the sidewalk in, or we can put a sidewalk in and they can come back in a year and they can redo it all and pay for it all at their expense again. So we're moving forward on that, trying to fix that corner of town and make that pretty nice. That will be a late summer, fall project.
Yeah.
See how our other one lays out, but we hope to have it done before winter.
Norm, can you also just briefly mention the 2 projects that the preliminary engineering work RFP
Yes.
going to go out for?
One of the things that we were working on, we had talked about Hall Street as far as doing some upgrades on Hall Street, paving it. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I encourage you to come find me and we'll take a field trip out to Hall Street. There is 2 cross sections of drainage that go on one side of Hall Street to the other side of the Hall Street to out to the field behind Homestead Muse. Both of those pipes run under people's houses. Okay, they were people have created structures over our existing drainage that, for some reason should have never been there. They were long before I've been here. Probably one of them was long before Mike's was here. But needless to say, they're there. We need that road is in drastic need of pavement, like a lot of our other streets. But we need to solve the drainage issues. So we went for a request for proposal we'll start with Hall Street to square up the road. This is engineering. Okay, this is an engineering step. So to get the road squared up, to go with the drainage, to figure out drainage to where it needs to land, because there's not like a river or an embankment that we can throw over. We actually own, the village owns property at the end of Hall Street. There's nowhere to turn the truck around, and the house that we backed into, now their situation has changed and there's a lot more cars in the yard, and they've done their best this winter to help us out, but we do not have a spot. So to solve a lot of those issues and to ask the question if it's feasible to put a sidewalk onto that street. You know, we can go both ways, you know, is it left or is it the left side, the right side? Is it needed? You know, would we, you know, if narrowing up the street slows people down, which we all like. But if, you know, is it a good thing? Will that help us? You know what I mean? So, there's a lot of questions in that. So we need to see what that engineering will cost us. But we thought while we're doing it, we might as well get a little bang for our buck. We also go down on Park Street and we have some drainage issues and we have the hazard mitigation with the box culvert that runs right across from where Tara's parents live and Ron Penbrook, and the wall with the sewer line in the road. Now, the sewer line, remember, that's a private line. It's not our responsibility, nor is it our, you know, our duty to fix it. But if we can encompass a grant and repair that side of the wall and for the good of fish, wildlife, everything, and move that sewer line out of the river, you know, it all part of the grant. You know, so we requested engineering for that and also to figure out where the road is. There's a lot of discussion that road is feet higher than it normally was. Whether it needs to go down, whether it needs to go up to have proper drainage, proper crown to be able for water to flow and whatever else drainage that we need on that road. So it'll good. It's just a lot of paperwork. It'll be a lot of reading. And I encourage you when they come in to actually read them and meet with us with the engineers. And that way we can design a plan and we can actually plan for the plan. You know, and the first step in any type of funding from state or any grants that we have is you have to have this step. So this is why we're going for it. And if we get it and again, we can fit it in our budget and it plans, we'll build this, we'll get the plan. We can always put them in a drawer and we have them if we need them. And, or when it's time to enact. Again, we'll go back to Hall Street. I don't like to jump around, but I'll go back to Hall Street. If it's drainage, there's two separate lines. We might be able to repair one this year and we might be able to repair one next year if we have to incur all this cost ourselves, but at least we know the goal that we're working with and then we can, you know, we can lay it out. Might be a 8-year plan, but at least we know and we have the designs. And as we all know, with stormwater, you can't just dump it anywhere you want. You know, there's places we can replace the existing structures and replace the existing lines, but how am I going to dig up right through somebody's house? Right. So it has to be new. And it's unfortunate that these events are here. You know, we have, you know, there's border issues, there's right of way issues. There's a ton of that to straighten out on that street. So
Norm, one of those lines I recall is the one going across the corner of school or church and Hall, right?
no, nothing on. There's nothing on Church that goes across or Hall to go to Church Street.
Well, there is, in my recollection, a line, it may be a sewer line that goes under that house on the corner, just across from the school.
There's sewer and water, but there's no
drainage.
stormwater infrastructure
Gotcha.
from Hall Street to Church Street. Nothing.
Thank you.
All
And
that
I
stuff runs
do
back.
think, Matthew, I do think that when we get to Hall Street, that'll be another project to coordinate with the water department, because I believe there is old infrastructure on that street from the water department side of things too.
Yeah.
So that would be another one akin to what's happening now.
Yep.
And again, we don't expect that any of this is a 2-year plan. You know, this is going to be a 5. You know, a 5-year plan would be great for us.
Yeah.
You know, because it definitely needs some attention. And but
Yeah, that's a lot of work
there's
laid out
there's
there.
But I think it'll be almost a year to engineer it.
Yeah.
You know, figure out the wetlands part and
On
and
Hall Street, yeah,
getting water to where it needs to go. And
and Park Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because these are really, really going to be costly projects, we're going to scour everything we can to find grants to do this.
Right.
Because otherwise you're asking less than 700 taxpayers to foot this bill.
Yeah.
And we'll do our level best to do that. But you got to start knowing something, which is why we've been meeting with these people and doing things now.
Appreciate that.
So on Park Street, that would remain gravel, or is that a decision that will be approached?
well, right now, there's no intent to do anything
Yeah.
with the coating except leave it to gravel.
Yeah.
But there is a big discussion to take a foot off the top of the road.
Yeah, that's a big discussion. That's a lot of moving.
You know, and well, but if that's the right thing for the drainage
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
to be done. But again, that's people with transits and surveyors and stuff like that. And again, we'll know, you know, both these projects can
Okay.
happen at the same time because they're different things, you know, we can leapfrog, but we got to have an understanding of where this is going to land, you know.
Yeah.
You know, is it going to be you know, we'll call like Hall Street with drainage infrastructure. You know, is it going to be a $400,000 project or is it going to be $1 million project? Oh,
So
You know.
Norm, I don't mean to, I don't want to belabor this, but Hall Street, what is the water issue exactly? The water
Well-
does not drain?
it doesn't drain and the infrastructure is falling apart. The culverts need to be replaced. They're all rusted and rotted.
And where was that water leading?
It just lays in the middle of the road.
No, but I mean, in the design, the current design as you
In
might,
the current design, it goes from Hall Street to the back of all the residences on the right side of Hall Street as you look to the west.
heads down toward the state line or whatever. on
Heads down,
67.
goes right back of Homestead Muse. There's a big gully there and that's where it all goes.
All right.
And just lays out on the grass.
And that makes sense. It's just that you're saying elevationally, but you're just saying that that's currently the structures are collapsing.
The culverts are in disrepair. They're starting to get where they're gonna need to be replaced very soon. And to replace them, we have buildings built on top of them now.
I got you. Okay.
Okay, so now you know, you have to reroute, reline. You know, it could get an engineer coming in and you know, they do like a slip line thing and then they stay right where they're at. You know, that might be the answer. But you know, there needs to be more of it and the water does not drain off the road past where John Kennedy had that house.
Right.
You know, it ponds right there, wicked. So, you know, it needs some more there and it's the street's pretty flat. So it's hard to, you know, it's not easy to figure out where you're going to run it.
Everything is flat there. I mean, I get it. The only place that goes lower where there is a place to put it is down towards Homestead. Are you saying that Homestead was the structure that was built on top of it
No, it's houses
on Hall?
on Hall Street. Again, I encourage you to come find me on a day off and we can take a
I'd
walk.
like to.
And we can show you.
Like, I kind of remember when I looked at 22 Hall Street, which the school district had to take over and resell, that there's a stream back there on the north side. Is
I
that
believe-
only
Yeah,
certain times of the year?
yeah,
Okay,
not doesn't run all the time. More like
Right.
swampy wetland kind of
more like
stuff.
spring runoff.
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
it's more definitely a swampy. Yeah.
Yep.
right.
And
But
does
remember,
that run somewhere out to the west, or does it,
I
I can't remember which way it ran.
but because you go to the west and down to the property where we own at the end of the road.
Yeah.
There's a bigger culvert that's probably like, you know, maybe it was 4 foot at one time. It's all swamp.
Mhm.
And that's where everything seems to be headed that way.
Okay,
But remember, at one time, I bet you these were all cleared, you
yes,
know, the natural leaves and junk and dust and everything is
Right.
filled these up so they don't run. You know,
Yep.
again, right away issues, Homestead Muse wasn't there, you know, that was a big low spot. I would almost guess by looking at the lay of the land,
It
yeah,
was
they
a wet,
wanted to build that place.
sure it was.
they shouldn't have. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Norm,
Very-
thank you for that
very
research,
elucidating.
and I'm gonna come and see you soon.
Yeah. Well, maybe
I
I'll
would
come with it.
encourage people to do so.
Yeah,
because
I'd
yeah.
like to get in on that
Yeah.
also.
Norman.
Ray, I'm
quite a
off,
bit of-
I'm off the next few days, for medical appointments and whatnot, but, I don't know, Norm, maybe later tomorrow.
Cell phone,
afternoon.
call me. We can go out there. It's only take a second. You know, I don't
Great.
care if we make 3 trips or 1 trip. You know, I know there's can't have too many trustees together at the same time and but it's not a problem. Just come find me and we can take a run out there. And I can show you.
Thank you for all that background on that.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and the
Thanks,
legwork,
Norm.
preparing for the future. That's wonderful.
Yep.
The
Well-
other thing, Norm, I don't know if you had anything else to report on your projects, but I did want to mention the road and bridge standards that need to be adopted annually. Norm and I had met with the V-Trans folks, and really, the meeting hadn't happened the previous couple of years because of COVID. And this is just something that should be done, must be done annually. In the past, in prior years, generally just one person signed this. Norm does know and abide by the road and bridge standards, so it is not a stretch at all for us to adopt it. To say we're adopting these standards.
Yep.
And then the other thing that we need to do is, there's another form where you do your annual plan for your highway work. And the gentleman that we met with went over how we do this. I sent you a copy of that. And this just needs to be approved as well. Again, in prior years, it was done by either a chair or a vice chair. And you will see these documents that I had sent you as a PDF, they will be in the envelope. They'll have Scott and my signature on it. And if the rest of you get a chance, do stop over and get them signed. And Lori, I'll note which ones you keep and which ones I need to get back.
That's go to Lori's house and sign these.
Yes, and I'll
Okay.
have them there by tomorrow afternoon.
And the
Norm,
bridge
was it-
standards apply to how many bridges? Which bridges?
Oh, roads and bridge standards means the state with their, you know, the adapted codes of how, you know, a driveway can only be so much and, you know,
Okay,
making it so wide and, you know, again, a lot of the things, just like on Hall Street that we're trying to
Right.
fix. It
I
just,
was specifically thinking about the bridges. Does that include the state bridge that's right down the street from me? Over the Karen Creek? And the bridge at the hot firehouse, and
well, we don't own that bridge. The one
that's a state
one-
bridge.
that's past the Chemfab and
Yeah.
before Sherry Lane,
That's the state
state-
bridge, right? But
that's
the
state.
one by the firehouse,
that's BR 71 and the one behind it is BR 72
Okay.
and those are our bridges.
okay, thank you.
Anything
I
else we
should get
should
a
cover,
tour
Norm?
of those too.
Nope, that's it.
Any other questions for Norm?
Actually, do you mind if I ask a quick question about Park Street?
Of course,
I heard-
Mr. Miller.
So I heard that the paving the road was not being considered. I just wanted to know if there was a particular reason for that, or if it just wasn't, if it just hadn't been discussed, or what was the decision making behind that?
I can probably weigh in on that because I live on Park. when I first moved here, a nice old lady that lived down the road ages ago told me that the village pushed to have this road preserved as a somewhat historic pathway, with the canopy as it exists and with the dirt road as it exists. They wanted to really preserve the slower speed and the walking paths for everyone. So I don't think it's ever really been under consideration for paving, just because we have Water Street down below that people can take and take at a higher speed, much to Rob's chagrin. But yeah, as far as I know, somewhere in the history of our world, people really wanted to keep it as a slower speed road with dirt instead of pavement.
It is also because, right, so paving that road would create a detour that's even better than River Road.
Right.
For people from New York. I mean, in the 20 some years that I've been doing this, that's just off the table. Is there somebody?
It's already a drag strip with the potholes.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
is there somebody wanting it paved? I'm sorry, I missed the question. What?
I guess I've kind of just heard some chatter. I'm not, I'm not trying to make any suggestions. I just kind of wanted to get a better understanding of what, what the trustees' reason was, or what the town's reason was in general, and what had already been considered. I'm just kind of trying to learn here.
Yep.
Yeah,
Alex,
I'd,
do you live,
yeah, go ahead.
Alex, do you live on that road?
I do live on Park Street, yes.
Okay.
I attended one of those sessions when Nathan Wallisent, I believe, was with some other folks, was pleading with the board, and the board did change the speed limit to 25, the present limit. And I believe I recall that they wanted nothing to do with paving it. But
Yeah.
it could be that the consensus has changed on that. Who knows?
And 25 is like faster than you ought to be going there with.
Yeah, really, with the gravel helps keep your speed down, because you'll be really chopping up and down on the holes.
And that's why you have the washboard effect there.
Right.
'Cause people are just zipping through there, but
Yeah.
And would that still be the case with the possibility of like narrowing the roads to try to kind of constrict the feeling of being able to fly down the road? It seems like, I don't know, that's an
Well,
engineering.
it's not a standard width now, though.
it's pretty narrow as it is. I mean,
Pretty narrow.
Yeah, I don't think we were talking about narrowing Park, Alex. I
No.
think we were more talking about whether Hall could tolerate having a sidewalk.
Sidewalk, yeah, which would
Yeah,
cut down the width,
right.
yes.
right, yeah.
Yep.
Alex, do you live in the duplex?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. Welcome. Sorry,
Oh, thanks.
Thanks for attending.
I'm your
Of course.
neighbor.
Yep.
Yeah, I think my wife might have met you at some point, but
I don't think you, I mean, do you want that paved, Alex? Do you feel like that'd be a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it kind of depends. I mean, the speeding is an issue, and if it's something that would increase that, then that's not a desirable outcome. But I guess I don't know. I whatever way things can be addressed as beneficial. The potholes on the road do develop really fast, and it can be it can be some trouble. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider, right?
That's a rural road that's gonna have those issues, and before Norm was part of the department, that road was graded once every 2 years or so. And
Yeah, this year it may have seemed like it was a little bit worse because our road grader was down for a while just recently. And that kind of put a stop on getting it graded for a little
Right.
while.
yeah, but I've seen a lot of worse.
Yeah.
Also,
I mean,
Nothing.
I mean, it's bad, but that should slow people down, I would hope,
You would hope,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know.
Well, you know, I've taken a walk with Nathan and Ann. Ann's got some real mobility issues due to her Parkinson's. And they take a walk up and down the road, that twice a day they take a walk when it's good enough weather, I think. And yeah, to get down to just near Katie Cleaver's house from their house takes a good half hour for
Wow.
Ann. And the potholes don't help.
No,
But I'm sure she doesn't want, I'm pretty
Pavement,
sure
but-
they're not interested in having it paved, but they would be interested in a little smoother surface, I'm sure.
the pavement does go to just beyond going
Yeah,
north,
that's
from
right.
Katie Cleaver's.
Yep.
I don't
So
know.
it goes halfway to Nathan and Ann's house.
Yep.
But it takes a long time for her to make
Well-
that trek. And it's
Okay, so-
good. I mean, she works at it. She's definitely got game for keeping herself moving, so. But,
Okay. can we
and this
move
road
on?
project will have nothing to do with
No,
that, but
I would
think-
like to move on.
Yep.
Okay.
If we may.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I would
Alex.
love to have you attend. Thank you so much.
Nice meeting you.
And join us again anytime and feel free to hang out with the rest of us here. Norm, I think if you're welcome to hang out again with us, Norm, or if you have nothing else to report, we shall bid you good night if you wish.
Okay. Good night. If you need something, just call me.
Will do. Thank you, Norm.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Norm.
man.
Chief Harrington is not able to join us. He is sick. We wish him a speedy recovery. He did send a brief text. I'm not quite sure I follow it, but I think he said that he is over budget by $2,100 on training because of the need of the number of folks. He had 8 going this weekend and 7 in May. And he said it will be 2,100, so I will be over by 2,100. And the school for this month was 2,675. So I would prefer to table that and let Chief Harrington fill us in next month so that I'm not misspeaking.
Yep.
Doug, can you talk about the work that you have so kindly been doing on consolidated communications?
Yep, I'll start with that, and then I've got a few other things.
Yes.
So Consolidated, we are moving forward with the conversion at so it'll be the 3 locations, the depot, the village garage, and the fire department building. So the first step is going to be internet. So that will be switched over to Fidium fiber internet. We are going to try to coordinate a day next week. They wanted to actually try to do it tomorrow. I knew that was not possible because it was way too quick to get it coordinated. Not only to have somebody present, but we also have to get E-Enable involved because they will be supplying the routers for us and helping us to get everything set up and flowing with all of our technology. So the hope is that next week they will do the installs and then we can get everything set up. Once that's up and running, then the phone becomes the next conversation to figure that out. And then that's really it. We will still be a Comcast customer for a couple of services. We won't be getting rid of them completely. But obviously the internet is the biggest thing to get switched over to. Obviously we're on Zoom again for the 2nd month because of the issues at the depot. So that is moving forward. And like I say, so hopefully next month we will be back at the depot meeting and everything will be working fine. Does anybody have any questions about that before I go into anything else?
Is Fidium a competitor with Comcast?
Yes.
Okay, so we have two services in the village now instead of just one.
Basically, yes. Fidium is a fiber-based internet, and they have not been able to come in because the wiring wasn't available. It has been since made available. I don't know all the technical things. It's, obviously through the state and all those with, trying to get the connectivity and find rural areas and all those types of things. So opportunities have opened up, and Fidium was one of the ones who kind of jumped on board and started to go gung ho. So, most people within the village, I'm sure, are getting. I got an ad today in my mailbox for service being offered and things like that. So it's a little bit different than a traditional, what you'll call a land-based internet. It is a fiber-based. So there is an installation piece that has to happen to get it set up, but it should be much quicker upload and download speeds. And for the amount that we use it, we should be more than fine. The issues that we were bumping up against Comcast, we should not have at all with the Fidium.
And thank you so much, because that was a necessary project. And I truly thank you for shouldering it, because we just could not meet in the depot anymore. It was just too uncertain and unstable. So like Doug said, next month we should be back with hybrid options and be able to see each other in person as we wish.
May I ask one quick question? So
Yes.
by fiber, they mean glass fiber, fiber optic cable?
Fiber optic
Okay,
cable, yes. Yep.
And Comcast is still using copper.
Well, Comcast does have fiber as an
Fiber?
option at certain locations.
Okay, but they don't.
However,
they're not thoroughly fiber.
they're not correct, and they're not solely fiber. And the other issue is, at this point in time, their fiber pricing is not competitive with Fidium.
Okay.
So
great.
if we were to upgrade from the regular internet at just use the depot, for example, we would have not only we would have a price increase, whereas Fidium, we're going to get a better quality and get a cheaper rate.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom.
Yes.
Next couple of things. We had talked about this at one meeting quite a while ago. And I think Matt was one of the ones, and John Lamson had started this with the opioid settlement. So the village has received a total of $2,214.73 to date. I did a little research quickly, and we have to use 70% of that towards education / training, however you want to look at it. So some of the options would be obviously to make a donation to either the Bennington PD, the Sheriff's Department, with the earmark for them, because they obviously, especially the Bennington PD, serves the village from that perspective. 15% can be used for administrative expenses, and 15% can be used for anything. So unlike ARPA, it's very, very narrow what this can be used for. So since we're heading towards, June 30th, I think we should probably make a decision either this month or next month of what we want to do with that 70% chunk, so we can, document that we use that and put it towards the piece that it needs to go towards. So those are the options that I kind of saw.
What about the nonprofits that deal with drug intervention and addiction help and things like that? Is it Turning Point
Yes, I
downstairs
was going
or
to say Turning
what?
Point.
I believe that would be a perfectly good also. Again, the police kind of just came to mind because it was around the same time we were meeting with the Sheriff's Department. So that was in my mind, but as long as it's going towards training, so I'm sure if we explained to them where it was coming from, because they, you know, that they have to accept it and be able to use it for. Obviously, Turning Point would probably be a great one because that's what they do.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yep, I don't, because there was no specification as to how it just had to be used for training / education, or, you know, there's a couple of other smaller items that it could be used for, but that's the.
So first of all, Matthew is trying to say something. Matthew, you're muted. Can you unmute?
So, yeah, Turning Point is definitely would be my recommendation. And it doesn't have to be training per se. Can it be intervention in itself?
Right.
Yeah, that would fall under the
Education.
education piece, correct. I believe, like I said, the main one that was popping up, it said education or training.
Okay.
Anybody else have any?
Well, I do have a contact that, because I had reached out to the Attorney General's office, and then I had gotten a contact person at the state level, but then I went away and didn't get a chance to do that. So I don't have to do the same research if Doug has, but I'd be happy to call Turning Point and see whether they are getting funds from other municipalities for this too.
Right.
Because rather than just send a check and then they're not even aware of it. And then what about the reporting requirements of it? Do you want me to look into that, Doug, or have you?
I couldn't find. I found the percentage breakdown pretty easily.
Okay.
I could not find a reporting piece of things. So I don't know if it's a situation where we just have to document in case we were ever audited. I didn't see anything that jumped out that said, once you spend it, you have to, you know, tell us how you spent it.
Okay, well then I will just to double check, just to verify, I'll reach out to that contact that I got from the Attorney General's office. And then let's make sure that this gets on our agenda for May.
Great.
Thank you for researching that.
Sure.
And did you have something else?
Yep, just a couple of other small things. I sent out the cash balance report. If anybody has any questions, certainly let me know. I did fund the new reserve, which we were calling the loan fund under the fire department, that we were going to be using the $10,000 per year to offset a portion of the payment. There was also a slight discrepancy at the bank from when we took the fire truck reserve fund. The portion we didn't use, they had put in the general reserve, so I had them move that back. So you'll see that's back on there, the $4,692.05, which I kept a note on my spreadsheet so I knew what it needed to be. And like I said in my email, I'm going to start funding the reserves for this fiscal year over the next, month and a half or so. So that can be done well before 6:30, and we have that. That was those pieces, and I think that was the main items that I had. I did speak to Community Bank in respect out of doing financial due diligence with banks that are failing. Obviously, I had no concerns about Community Bank, and they solidified that. They don't have high risk deposits, which some of the banks that you saw that failed, were highly leveraged banks and banks that held unsecured deposits, un-FDIC insured deposits, crypto, things like that. Community doesn't do any of those items. They're a publicly traded company, so all their financials are listed online. They're a nationally ranked bank. They don't have any outstanding items with the OCC. Their audits all, came back clean. Like I said, they didn't have any items, which I didn't expect to find. But it was good for fiduciary responsibility for us to take a look at them.
Thank you.
In light of that.
Yes. And I do know that once a year, we would sit down together and just make sure that everything was falling under the insured categories. And perhaps on some of our funds that we don't need to use right away, we should look and see where the best rates are for short-term CDs.
Yeah, we can talk about it. And you know,
Yeah.
the thing, you know, because obviously we get a heavy balance at the end of the year and then it whittles down.
Yeah,
You know, so we're not necessarily always in a situation where we're always above the FDIC threshold.
right.
The other piece of the puzzle is municipalities are a bit different than private. There still are thresholds, but it's not exact. It's not an apples to apples comparison, because
Okay.
there are items within the municipality that are looked at differently, much like a trust would be if from an individual. You know, you can have a trust in your name and it's separate from you as an individual. So there's little differences like that. You know, but it's certainly not a bad thing to move things around, especially with deposit rates on the rise.
Yeah.
So as things come up, we can certainly look to, you know, move some of the sinking funds that we know we're not going to need for, say, a year or so, or
Yeah.
even if there's a longer one, a 2-year, you know, you can move it out
Yeah.
and go from there. So we can always keep that in our minds as things come up.
Great, and we will look to you to provide us with that best advice.
Okay.
Thank you.
And unless anybody has any other questions, that is all I have.
So great, Doug. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yes.
And
No problem.
we are pretty much on time, so we will move to new business. Before I ask for the report on the meeting with the sheriff, I just want to briefly mention under new business, the email that had come in, I believe Lori passed it around, for use of the Lions field, use of the fields for a wiffle ball tournament. I just spoke with Mark Bedreau before getting onto this meeting. He has made contact with folks there who are making that request. It is the Lions Club that are asking to use that field on June 2nd to 4th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It is a fundraiser specifically only for the Lions, the Lions group. Mark is going to write up a memo of use pending our approval of that. Mark says it is absolutely within searching for the word guidelines. Thank you for use of the property. And Mark would just appreciate a vote of confidence from us tonight. So if there is no discussion, can we look for a motion to approve Mark going forward and working with the Lions Club?
I'd like to ask one question because I don't really understand the liability issues. Are there any liability issues? Do they provide insurance for their?
They provide
they're
their
gonna do?
own. They
Okay.
provide their own, and there is, again, conforming with no alcohol, no commercial sales. They will have some concessions, but that's just part of the event.
Do they give us a certificate of that insurance? So that we have
I
it
believe
on
I
file?
will have to check with Mark. He's handled this in the past, and he is very confident that Alliance is a group that will do everything
Yeah, I
correct.
would think so.
Yeah, and I know like when the Bennington Little League has used it, they've always provided a certificate of insurance. So I
Yeah.
think Mark probably has that
probably
in
has
his
one.
agreement. Yep.
All right. I'll make a motion that we give him a vote of confidence there.
I'll second.
Right. Seconded
Negotiating
Tara.
with the Lions about
Yeah.
holding this tournament.
Thank you.
Pickleball, was it?
Wiffle ball.
Wiffle ball, okay.
Oh.
A little different ball, okay. All right,
Any other questions? Good question, Ray, though. Any other questions? Comments? Hearing none. Shall we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think I hear us all. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, now, if we can have Tara and Ray and Doug, you so kindly met with our new sheriff. Thank you for doing so. And the floor is yours.
Sure.
Whoever wishes to speak.
Tara, if you want to just talk about the general meeting
I'll
and
do
then
the
I can
general,
talk
you
about
do the
timing.
money.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
I got it. Yeah, so we had a good meeting with James Gully and Ross Harrington, who is a resident of North Bennington, but also a sheriff's deputy. And the general conversation was that we could hire them on for any amount of time weekly, as low as 4 hours a week, as much as 40 hours a week. And depending on what we chose, the rates would be a little bit different. They do cover the county, so they have people stretched far and wide from north to south, doing the similar things. And then we talked about what their jobs would be, whether it would be speed control or other things. I know that Ross, the deputy, mentioned that Lake Perrin was a source of quite a few calls last year due to people forgetting how to be social. And so knowing the village as he does, he would actually be a beneficial person to know when the high speeding times would be and where they would be. But he would also know everyone he pulled over. So we have a good representative in the sheriff department for our village. And then Sheriff Gully talked to us about the rates, which I assume Doug would run up some theoretical numbers based on the possibility of what we could hire them on to do.
Yeah, I can talk about that at the end, Tara.
Yep. I don't have much more to say. It was a very encouraging meeting. We learned a whole lot, specifically that there are different levels of police education for second and third level, and what they're able to do with that education and training. And Sheriff Gully is trying to get all of his servicemen to be third levels ultimately, because they have the most education and training in everything firearms and crowd control and what have you. So I feel like he's doing the best he can in his new role to improve
Right.
situations. And I don't know, Ray, did I miss anything?
Well, that he made a point of talking about the communications that they have with the Bennington Police Department and any other departments that they work with, including the state troopers. And that I guess they pretty well know where their boundaries are with respect to the other law enforcement outfits that are available and what turf they're handling.
Yeah,
So,
they communicate well. So if a sheriff was on duty in the village, the Bennington PD would know that should they get
would
a
know that,
call.
yes.
And then they would contact the sheriff to probably take care of the call, depending on if it was a one person or two person job.
Yeah.
But Deputy Harrington also was with the Bennington PD as recently, I think, as a year ago. So he has a
Yes,
lot of
and
understanding
was
with that
Gully
group
as well. He had also served with the Bennington Police Department. He's
Yeah.
had
So I
12 years
believe,
there.
I don't want to speak with certainty, but I'm pretty confident that Ross was
Has
at
more
the
time.
PD up until Sheriff Gully was elected and chose to leave Bennington PD to go to the sheriff's department when Sheriff Gully was elected. I
Right.
believe that's the timeline.
But they do have, a good relationship and connections to the Bennington PD. So they would be
Right.
able to know if there was some kind of emergency, they would know that the sheriff was serving in our town at that time, and they would send them our way.
Hmm.
And
I have a couple of questions.
well, one more point.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Ray.
He is one thing that is a general point of emphasis for him is that he's pushing for it to be more of doing this sort of law enforcement effort as opposed to the the profile on work in the streets and things like that. So
What do you mean by this sort of profile?
Yeah, I'm not
What?
clear.
what? Sorry.
Could
you
you
mean by that?
elaborate on that if we didn't understand what you meant?
Well, previously, the only time I ever saw the sheriff's department was out on the road, traffic directing for digs and things like that.
Oh, right.
Occasionally I'd see a car charged by, but so there was obviously something else going on, but his emphasis is to be less on, I mean, they have to make money, fees for the organization to survive, but that would be through these contracts that they're working out with various communities for ancillary services or services in lieu of an actual police department.
Yep.
North Bennington has theoretically, we do have services from the Bennington Police when there is a need, and they would respect that. But they would provide the kind of services that we have to kind of help specify what we want, and part of that is traffic control, and part of that is maybe dealing with issues around parent recreations when it's open and available, and that sort of thing. So I thought, to me, that seemed like a major difference in emphasis from what has previously happened under the sheriff's department.
I feel compelled to speak to a little bit of history.
Please.
I think I spoke to this before, but we contracted with the sheriff's department post 9/11, and because there were grants, so we had support grants. It was just money, federal money flowing in, like we just saw before, with COVID. And for maybe 2 years, Lori, I don't know, we contracted with them to do just basic traffic stuff, tickets, whatever. And shortly after, and we could see the receipts, because they would do, we get money from a partial amount of money from the traffic tickets that they write. And
So we'd get a check and it would specify how many stops there were, and
Right.
and it was a check from the tickets that were being paid.
right.
Go ahead, Matt.
But then, it dried up because they had the contract. They knew it was federal money. They knew it wasn't costing us that much. We had some match of some sort, but they're spread thin, of course. And the fact that a law enforcement agency, state or county-wide, is required to go out and seek, funding is just blows my mind. And I mean, seeking the work that they would do, instead of being funded centrally by perhaps the county or the state level. We would all love more presence here. But you're not going to get it by signing a contract with the sheriff's department. And the fact that you mentioned that, well, that if they were under contract with us, that they would show up to an event. Don't they have to do that anyway? I mean, isn't that their job, or has it come to this where, well, they'll come if we have a contract with them, otherwise you're, out of luck. I'm confused by that.
Well, I would think Bennington PD would be the first source of law enforcement for the lake, or
Or
events
for the
at
town
lake.
or the village, right? For all of it.
Yes, yeah, right. So in other words, we shouldn't have to hire somebody. Because we already have the Bennington PD.
Mhm.
So, but there is a lot of feeling that more enforcement is needed. So is this the way to get it, and is it cost effective? Matt, let me ask you a quick question. Did you feel like they were gung ho in the beginning and there was a revenue flow from the tickets and then it just petered out? Is that sort of how I interpreted what you
That-
said?
That's my impression, but I will admit that that's 20 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And, but I remember feeling like it wasn't worth it to us in the end of that contract. And we did not renew it. Which would have been, at our cost at the time. And maybe the first 1, 2, 3-year contract was paid for by federal money or partially so. And, but I remember feeling, and Lori can speak to this, she was there. Do you recall at all, Lori?
Yeah, I do. And I agree with, most of what you're saying. It seemed that towards the end of the month, we got the most revenue coming in. It was like you have to get your quota in kind of thing. And it was all the way through, it was a partial pay. And at the end, it was the money that ended up being generated was not enough for the village to go ahead and hire on its own.
Right.
So it was very discouraging. I think that everyone thought this was going to be the big answer, and it wasn't.
But maybe at the time we thought we could just fulfill our expenses solely with the ticket revenue, and maybe that's not what we should be doing. We should be thinking about, these other concerns that
Well, the thing is, you can ticket people, but it doesn't mean they're going to pay. So the ticket
Right.
revenue wasn't, it was something. And I mean, I could probably go back and look and see what it was, but I mean, I remember amounts of, $400 or $200, or it was nothing extravagant that would pay for the cost of a sheriff.
Right.
That's for sure. And again, I mean, there were a lot of tickets issued, but in general, it was less than 50% of people who paid the tickets. So.
And I think I think the greater question is, are we gonna succumb to the notion that a law enforcement agency sanctioned by the state and the county has to go find their bread and butter by
have to have bake
contracting their
sales.
services to villages and towns that don't have the coverage that they should have by their police departments, which also aren't being funded in a way that that would, allow them to give the services that we think we deserve.
Did you have another question?
I do, but I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to hear from Doug about the cost, because the
Yeah.
Right.
cost might make it unaffordable.
Yeah.
Is that okay with people?
It's okay with me. I want to let this be an open discussion. So yes, Doug.
Yep. So
what is
I'll
your time?
I'll make a few quick points and then I'll jump in with the funds. So I kind of figured there's going to be a lot of discussion. Obviously, no decisions are going to be made here.
Right.
And to Matt's point, I agree with the majority of what Matt's saying from the funding standpoint, that it systematically should change. But we are where we are. And we fall under the umbrella of the Bennington Police Department and the sheriff, Sheriff Gully. This would be an addition to, we're not a town or a village that doesn't have law enforcement where we have to seek our own. So by no means would this ever replace the Bennington Police Department. That being said, the Bennington Police Department is drastically understaffed and overworked. And the issues within Bennington, which are certainly seeped into North Bennington, are on a large scale, and we're all well aware of that. But I think that needs to be in the front of everybody's mind too, is what makes the most sense from that standpoint, because if we look at it strictly from a traffic control, okay, then you're looking at it from one side of the coin, but you got to take the other side of the coin too, and figure out what makes the most sense for the village and the residents. So that being said, it's not cheap.
Okay,
No.
So there's a breakdown by hour. So it's a 1-year contract. You would sign a 1-year contract. So the 0 to 20 hour category. So Sheriff Gully's example was say if you wanted 10 hours per week, you would fall into that range. That is $70 per hour. So if that is over a 1-year contract, you'd be looking at $36,400.
Nope.
If you jump to 21 hours per week, the rate goes down at the 21st hour. So if you're going to do 20 hours, you might as well do 21 hours because you get a lower rate. So the 21 hour rate would be $65 per hour. And then extrapolated for a 1-year contract would be $70,980. Those would be the two options realistically. We wouldn't want less than 10 hours, and we wouldn't probably want or need ever to have more than 21 hours. So we would fall in that range.
why do you say we wouldn't want less than 10 hours? What if you just did, like a weekend type of thing or something
So
like that?
that conversation was brought up, and Tara can jump in if she remembers any other piece of this. Basically, his recommendation is 10 hours because what they would do is they would set up a rotating schedule, because you wouldn't want everything just to be on the weekends. The other side of the coin is every village or municipality would want a weekend. So he does have to rotate through all of his contracts.
Got it.
And the 10 hours offers flexibility from, okay, so maybe after school, a couple of days, the traffic is a little heavier on, say, a Thursday or a Friday. So it would allow for, say, 2 or 3 hours on a Thursday afternoon for somebody to be in the village when school is letting out. Or maybe Monday morning, people getting to work, traffic is a little heavier and people tend to go a little faster. So the reason that he recommended the 10 hours was that kind of gives the most flexibility on the lower end to make something work.
Check them out.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Yeah, thank you.
So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just, you don't have to do the total math, but what would 4 hours a week cost? At the
I
$70?
just did that. It was
$280.
300.
280,
Yeah.
I think I just did that.
1,000 a
Or maybe I
month.
did 5 hours.
Or was it 80 for that? 320.
4
Maybe it's
times
320.
70 times 52. It's just under 15,000.
So that, to me, is something that the village might be able to afford. The 70,000, I think, is
It's too
out
much.
of,
The 10 though, 10 that came to 36,400. Again, knowing that we have less than 700 taxpayers footing these bills,
yeah,
so we want this. We want to have our roads good. We want to have our sidewalks. We want to have new fire vehicles. We want to have a solidly well-trained department. We take pride in the fact that we've had a North Bennington Fire Department since the beginning of time. We want parks. We want to maintain our depot.
and we want cheap tax rates.
Right, so
Mary, we lost our,
Well,
we lost our note taker. about
Uh-oh.
5 minutes ago and she's trying to get in. Can you see
Oh.
if she's trying to?
Yep, I just saw her now.
Okay.
Got her in. Oh, you did.
Yep.
So
There
Um,
she
Oh,
is.
sorry. I was so busy listening.
No, I'm
And I
sorry.
didn't see her pop up on my screen. Sorry, Lori.
Well, let's go back, Lori. What did you miss in terms of notes?
All of this. She texted me about 5 minutes ago that she couldn't.
Okay, so I missed, Doug was starting to discuss the financial piece of the sheriff.
Okay.
Uh,
So
That's
Can
what I,
we send that to you? Can we
Sure.
send you the
Yeah.
schedule? Because
Sure,
there is like a sliding scale of rates.
yeah, send that, Doug, to me and I'll put it in the minutes. That's all. Yes.
And then Lori, what we were talking about is the recommendation from the sheriff to have a 1-year contract. And the sheriff recommended 10 hours per week, which is
As a minimum.
36 at a minimum, which is
$700 a week.
$36,400.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
have to be raised by taxes.
I think listening to this discussion that there is no consensus on this board. And I think we need to pursue talking about what it is we really need.
Exactly.
I
And-
wish,
It's not-
Robert Nowak was.
Yeah,
here.
he's not here, unfortunately.
I know,
Well,
because it seems like that's something he would speak to.
right. And
Well, I
this might-
could, I
go ahead.
could make some comments being on the same road that Robert is. And I think, I've thought for a long time that the noise level from the traffic is just as bad as the speeding, because it's, noise pollution is recognized as a pollution by the EPA. So it's not just something that, oh, this person's a crabby old person. It's a
And you
real-
live in a brick house and it's
it's
still,
a real thing.
you know,
And well, Robert made the point that he can't have guests over in his living room or the TV on in his living room and hear, because all of these old houses are built very close to the roadway.
Yes.
The noise, and then because there's so many houses and buildings, there's a lot of echoing and reverberation from the traffic. So I think,
and we're getting older,
and
And we have
crabbier.
better- Worse
and
hearing.
crabbier. I agree.
Yeah.
Me too.
Well, I'm not sure how we would do anything about noise, except, reducing speed would help a little bit.
Well, Robert pointed out that
The
he had a
jailbreaking is
statistic.
part of it.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry, go ahead. I just said the jake breaking is part of it,
Yeah,
Particularly in
Robert had a
courthouse.
statistic from Europe somewhere. I forget if it was Germany or the United Kingdom. But a 10% decrease in the speed is a 50% decrease in the noise,
In decibels.
in
Uh-huh.
decibels. Yes, so they are related.
Okay, and then it depends on the type of vehicle, whether it is a truck coming from the business or the agricultural facility, whether it is
Right.
an electric vehicle, or whether it is, somebody with a souped up car or a motorcycle going to the bar across the street.
Or of someone with
so-
a broken muffler.
Right.
And
So,
that's where the enforcement could come in, is the people that have defective equipment. There's a category in the motor vehicle code, which is basically illegal or defective equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could be a bad headlight or a bald tire or a bad muffler.
I'm
And-
just telling you that 10 hours a week or whatever the hell you're proposing isn't gonna stop that at all, and we're just gonna be
Right.
spending money for nothing.
I think I agree with pretty much everything that's been said in some form or fashion, but Ray is correct in that we are not going to solve this today, nor were we ever intending to.
Right.
Today, the purpose of today is to hear what those of you who volunteered to meet found out. Now, I think we take this, we think about it,
Thank you, Mary.
perhaps we
Good
set
point.
up perhaps we set up, a public discussion at some point to see what our less than 700 taxpayers wish to shoulder.
Yep.
There's a lot of things we want. What is it that we really need, and what is it that we as a village are prioritizing?
Mhm.
And that is a much larger discussion
Yes,
than
I
here.
agree.
But I think it's great that the three of you did take time and meet, and we now at
Indeed.
least have something to start with.
Yep.
Well, I don't
you for
know
that.
if we do, actually.
Well, we have some information, Ray.
I mean, the question is, you put the question correctly, what is it the village feels it wants and is willing and able to support? And that is the question, and I think that we actually need other people from the village to tell us some of their feelings about this.
I think that's
I
what
agree.
Mary was saying. I
Yep.
think Mary was suggesting having people come out and tell us.
Yeah, because
Nobody's gonna
Well,
say
they've
anything.
told us they want to, I mean, they've come out and told us they want to cut the noise and the traffic speed.
right.
Agreed.
That we know.
But in all due respect, we have
And
not.
I don't know
heard-
that we have a
only
strategy for
heard-
that.
We
Other
have
than,
only heard from a very small subset of
Right.
people. Interested people who have a valid point and opinion, but if I choose to live in Manhattan, I'm gonna hear a different level of noise than if I choose to
Well,
live
sure.
in,
Well,
Totem.
Mary, this probably won't be a popular comment, but in my opinion, I think that people, they're quick to complain, but they haven't thought about the location of where they're purchasing, building, or renting a home. Main Street everywhere is a very busy place, not just North Bennington.
Right.
There are vehicles, it's a main thoroughfare.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, and if you choose to live in North Bennington on Main Street, that's what you're going to hear. And I really doubt there's very much that's gonna stop the noise and the speed.
Agreed.
But
I'd agree with
we
that.
still owe it to our residents to do the due diligence,
Yes.
to ask
Sure.
the questions, it may not be definitive answers that we have, but at least for those interested, we know what the cost would be to do, to build the proverbial Taj Mahal.
Yeah,
So again, it would be great if those, I mean, Bob's been great with, spearheading this concern about
Yeah,
the issues. And I know he held on here in this meeting until he couldn't anymore. But he needs to get his people together because he's got a lot of followers on his
Mhm.
issues here.
Mhm.
Bring them together and say, okay, this is one option. We're doing other studies and all this, but this right here is anywhere from 12 to $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Option. Do you think you think that'll help?
mhm.
And then they can vote on that kind of thing.
And we are getting a report from BCRC somewhere in the June, early July time period. And we can maybe then have another special meeting based on those suggestions. And it's not going to be like do A, B, and C, but what Norm and I asked for is just outline all the various options, what the pros and cons of various things are.
Mhm.
And so we will have that in addition to the time that the three of you spent, which again, I truly thank you for giving your time
Yeah.
to do that.
Well, the corridor issue is going to be there, and it extends not just from out to the west of North Bennington in through the village. It extends down to my house, for instance, because at night, I can hear these trucks coming a mile away
Mhm.
from up in the village
Correct.
down, or from me up to the village.
Yes,
If I happen to be awake, sometimes I am,
yes.
sometimes they wake me up. I can hear them. And that's never gonna be dealt with. I'm
No.
okay with that. It's
Okay.
never gonna be dealt with at my end of the village. But it could be dealt with somewhat in the village. And I'm thinking that like the walking sign signal
Yeah.
at the cross of Prospect of West and 67 there past Pangea. You know, if we had those throughout the village, we could slow this traffic down in this core village.
And that is one of the things that our report from BCRC will be
Okay.
including. So.
Yep.
All right, good. So let us move on, keep to our, as best we can to our schedule here. And we can pick this matter up. We can put it back on the agenda next month if you wish. Under old business, moving on. Another annual requirement is to do our local emergency management plan. We have to update the plan itself, and then we have an adoption form. This adoption form will already need to be changed, as will the plan, because we have different names now for first, second, and third assistant chiefs. I will need to get contact information from those individuals. But so,
Mary, I can get that contact info for you if you'd like.
yay, thank you. Yes, I'd like phone numbers and emails if I could, please. Okay.
Sure thing.
Okay, so basically, the information I sent you is the same. The only difference is those couple of updates on the contacts.
Yeah, for
And
the
then
fire department.
for the adoption, Matthew, your name will come off of there and Tara's will go on. If we are okay with that, I do need a motion to adopt the plan that had been emailed PDF to all of you.
So moved with
Thank
the
you.
adjustments.
Yep,
Thank you.
I'll second it with the
Thank you.
adjustments.
Okay, if no one is there any comments or questions? Again, let me just say, the local emergency management plan is basically a list of contacts and who might do what. We also had the hazard mitigation plan that Scott is helping with here, and that is the how. This is the who, the other is the how, where, why, what, and when.
Right, yep.
Okay. It took me a while to get this in my pea brain.
Well, there's so much going on in this little town that you have
Yes,
to deal with.
yes,
It's
there
not
is.
surprising.
Okay, so we had the motion from Tara, the second by Ray, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. This will not, does this need to be signed by everyone? No, I don't believe this needs to be signed by everyone, just Tara, you and I probably. Oh,
Yeah.
I have to get Chief Harrington because he's probably the one that has the incident management training.
Right, because he's the
Yes,
focus of that.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so what else did I have for old business? Just a note that DRB is meeting next Tuesday at the depot at 7 p.m. And Planning Commission meets Wednesday, the 19th at 7 p.m. These are not televised, or excuse me, Zoomed meetings. They are in person only at the main room at the depot.
Yep.
Tara, did you have anything to add?
Nope. We've got one topic of discussion for the DRB meeting, which is on the prospect of a short-term rental on West Street. And it doesn't fit into the zoning requirements as it stands.
And all of these meetings and agendas are on the village website, villagenorthbennington.org. as are all the contacts that Doug had mentioned previously.
Yep.
Do we have any other business to conduct?
Mary, please repeat the planning commission next meeting.
Certainly. The planning commission is Wednesday, the 19th at 7 PM at the depot.
And the DRB,
Is Tuesday, the 18th at 7 PM.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I just got that information for you for the fire department, and I'll
Okay.
text that to you. I'll text
you.
that. to you in a
Okay.
minute.
All right, and then trustees, I will send you a new PDF of everything once it's updated. And once we gather signatures, you might as well even have that. And we will have this on a calendar that Tara and I can be building so that by this time next year, we remember everything that happens at least once a year.
Uh-huh.
Any other business?
I would like to perhaps at the next meeting, talk about flood control, hazard mitigation relating to the dams and the lake. And just give you some of my observations to the board and maybe just, I've spoken to quite a number of people throughout the state and the
Yes.
village. And I've got some, I think, very interesting information. So I'd like to share that with the board,
We will put
if
that,
time permits.
we
If,
will put that on the agenda. It's important. What Scott had previewed me with was really quite interesting. So we will absolutely work that into the next meeting.
that's all I have.
Okay, and between now and the next meeting, whoever has an item, whether it's a trustee or a member of the public, please feel free to reach out.
Actually, I have something to bring up. I noticed that there are grants for planning or like heating systems and things like that, which we
Yes.
need in the firehouse.
We are, yes, we are going to be working on that. I'm working with PCRC
Okay, to
to
get
help
us
us
a
write
grant,
that.
a grant for that. Okay,
Well, the first stage is we have to get, we are working on just the planning section of it. It's 3 steps. You work on the planning section, then we have to have a different type of, what do you call it? Energy assessment.
Oh, yeah.
And those the applications for those grants are now. And then the third one is the big one to, which is up to $500,000 for the heating systems, cooling systems, and or weatherization of municipal buildings.
Yeah.
Those actual applications are not quite ready. The rest of it is, and BCRC is being quite helpful in that. And I have gone to a couple of different webinars to keep abreast of that. Thank you, Ray, for mentioning that.
yeah.
That's important.
I think it is something that needs to get rolling because
Mhm.
The upper part of that building is definitely not usable in the winter because it
Correct.
doesn't have a heating system
Yes,
adequate to it.
correct.
And the heating system that is there is not even adequate probably for next year for
Yeah.
heating the lower
Yeah.
section where the firemen do most of their work, I guess.
Those MERP
Yeah,
funds were
MERP.
discussed. Yeah, they were discussed this time last year, thinking that maybe by fall, the past fall, the applications would be ready. They are not, but the first segment for the $4,000 mini grant, those are out.
All right.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Jesus, can't wait for that.
Second.
Why am I
Agreed.
bored?
Yeah,
All right.
I'm in
Thank you
favor of
all.
that.
Thank you. Okay, that is 8:49. We are adjourned. And
Mary,
thank you.
thank you so much for all of it.
Yep.
And Tara,
Thanks,
thank
Mary.
you for taking over.
Good
Yeah.
seeing
Thank you,
everybody.
Tara.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.